When you first load into Ascendant, it's very easy to misunderstand what kind of game it's asking you to play. On the surface, it looks like chaos for chaos' sake, since, well, there's a lot going on. No, bro, where is my team? Ascendant starts with 4 teams of 3 players each, all dropped into the same biopunk arena at once. There's mobs right off the spawn, there's lots of unique systems involving game currencies, including energy, there's economies to manage, there's bots to shoot and loot, and of course, there's gunfire everywhere. There's also events that are popping off across the map that you can vote on before you even get started. And if your only frame of reference is a traditional PvP shooter, your first instinct is probably to treat this like a BR or an arena shooter, maybe an extraction shooter, but this is like a chaotic sucker punch of all of these combined. Dude, please get away, guys. God damn it! When I first played Ascendant, I even thought I might be in a single player game with how the intro and the hub area felt. I will give the game some flowers for how unique its hub is and just how much there was to do inside of it. I felt like I was constantly moving around, talking to new vendors for some sort of progression to different weapon types and passive buffs. Not completely unlike some other games in the mostly extraction shooter genre, but I could tell just how overpowered you could become if I spent like a week building into some of these weapon types. I also figured out that there was a parkour time trial to run around the hub in, and this is when I realized I'm pretty ass at movement. Can we talk about these NPCs walking around? I think Ascendant has definitely picked a tone, maybe even 2 very large tones. Choose your Donner. Oh, definitely Raven Steel. Jokes aside, my favorite part of this hub in my time was getting to go down to the Thunderdome and PvP other players while we were readying up for a match. You could test different weapons and get accustomed to the gunplay, which I actually did find pretty solid. Ascendant really isn't about who shoots better. It's about momentum, it's about shared decision making, and how quickly your team understands the systems that the game is quietly prioritizing over raw killing potential. Unlike your typical BR or extraction shooter, deaths are frequent and expected, and poor decisions, on the other hand, will definitely snowball really fast. One main example I can give you was by scouting different parts of the map, you could find free lives for your team, and you could find passive buffs through these little dock stations that gave you things like ammo, energy, and sometimes extra damage. You could even find respawn points as you walked around, which I found especially great because it meant I could sneak onto another team and shoot the shit out of them with my guns. And yeah, I definitely still found ways to die, but that's besides the point. One of the parts I really liked in this was getting to an area first and then taking it over. This meant you could get behind barriers that no other team could get to, and you could reap some extra rewards. The locations even melded to your team's ownership. Now, as a new player, I definitely got lost in some of these admittedly gigantic locations, but I thought it was a neat feature nonetheless to have exclusive areas to ourselves, as it opened up room for more options for PvP, or in my case, yeah, getting lost. Like I said, Ascendant isn't really about who shoots better, because even though I think there are some ridiculously powerful weapons and the gunplay is pretty dang solid, there are also some team-oriented weapons. Like, let me introduce you to the biggest pain in my ass in my time playing. This is the Power Glove. Power Glove can not only deal some shield damage to the other team, but it can repair the other team's shield while they are being shot. I ran into some sweats that absolutely understood that Ascendant is team play focused, and it's kind of broken with some of these builds. Your first few matches will probably blur together. You'll win some fights, you'll lose some other fights, and you'll still end up feeling behind without fully understanding why. You might even feel like another team just permanently outpaced you for some reasons that aren't immediately obvious. That frustration is intentional. The game doesn't stop to tutorialize its deeper rules. It assumes that you will learn them the hard way. The most important thing to understand early is how matches are actually won. Every game revolves around biocores. There are 4 of them on the map, and the first team to secure 2 of them will end up winning. Not the team that dominates every engagement, although it definitely helps to do that, just the team that locks down 2 objectives at the right moment. That structure immediately changes how you're supposed to think about fights. If one biocore is stacked with multiple teams fighting over it, the correct play isn't to brute force your way into it. It's to rotate, it's to secure different objectives, and to force the game to come to you. And if all 4 teams manage to secure 1 biocore each, the game will escalate. A 5th biocore will spawn. and suddenly everything funnels into one final moment where there can only be a single winner. I unfortunately didn't have a 5th biocore spawn in my playthrough, but it does happen this way, from what I've been told. That alone tells you a lot about Ascendant's priorities. It doesn't just reward dominance, it rewards timing and a lot of third partying if you can coordinate with your teammates, but you'll find a common theme, and that's team. But the system that actually decides the most matches happens even earlier, before objectives really come into play. Power is the backbone of the entire game, and it's the mechanic new players most consistently undervalue. Power drops from mutants, it drops from wildlife, it drops from activities scattered around the map, and the key rule is simple. All power is shared across your entire team. There's no personal stash, there's no incentive to hoard. If one person is collecting power, then everyone will benefit. That immediately reframes the opening minutes of a match. Instead of sprinting towards the loudest fight, the strongest teams are focused on collecting enough power to establish a baseline advantage. A common target is around 100 power per player, which instantly becomes 300 shared power for that squad. That number matters because it unlocks something far more important than temporary gear. Yes, you drop what you die with, and that does suck, but it doesn't mean you will lose everything. If, for example, you buy a shield upgrade, you will always respawn with a blue shield, which is very helpful if you keep dying. The same logic applies to weapons. Gear that you pick up off the ground is disposable, but gear that you buy becomes a part of your match-long economy. New players often don't realize this distinction until it's too late. They'll grab strong equipment, they'll win a fight or two, they'll die, and then they suddenly realize that they have lost everything while another team seems permanently armored. Now, that's not an immediate imbalance until someone figures out some serious cheese, which then I guess will get patched, but that's besides the point. The game rewards early investment. Once you understand that Ascendant is really about collecting power and then converting power into persistent advantages, the pacing starts to make a lot more sense. Respawning feels less punishing and losses feel recoverable. And then fights definitely stop feeling random. The game even doubles down on this philosophy with how it handles lives and recovery. Like I said, additional lives can be found across the map, and just like power, they're shared across the team. When teammates run out of them entirely, they're not just removed from the match, they can actually ping resurrection stations, and if someone reaches that point, they're brought back in. Again, I didn't get the most footage in my playtime showing all of these perfectly, but they're in the game, and many players that I talked to at least shared these experiences with me. The message is consistent. Solo play, definitely inefficient. Coordination, it's not really optional, and you're allowed to make mistakes, but you're also expected to recover together. There are map events, and there are airstrikes, and there are mutated mega beasts. And in this case, I call them Godzilla because goddamn, this guy fucked me up.
Big difference.
Oh my god! I just gotta kill my Godzilla! And sudden shifts in pressure aren't there to create randomness. They exist to redistribute momentum. Events give advantages, but they're temporary. Control can be stolen back. Nothing stays locked in place for long. Ascendant is constantly creating situations where teams have to reassess what matters right now. And I really did find myself getting annoyed on dying and running into that typical feeling that this type of game produces, where I'm mad because I lost. Bro, where? Come on! Customization feeds into this as well. Weapons can spiral into absurd builds. Perks and abilities can push players into specific roles. Some players become objective thieves. Others become disruption tools. Others exist purely to turn fights chaotic at the right moment. Even cosmetic systems reinforce identity, with of course skins, weapon charms, all those things that you're probably used to by now. There's also a few practical things worth knowing before you jump in. The game does include copyrighted music, which I found out earlier, so definitely make sure if you're streaming or recording it that you have streamer mode on. There's also customization options that you definitely don't want to experiment with. There's small details, actually some would say they're quite large, but they matter when you're capturing gameplay. Once everything clicks, Ascendant stops feeling overwhelming and it starts feeling a little bit more deliberate. It's a game that has economies, timings, and adaptation under pressure. You're not expected to master this game immediately, but you are expected to learn on the fly and make informed decisions and understand that systems matter more than the individual moments. If you're going in treating it like a traditional arena shooter deathmatch, it's gonna feel punishing and messy. But if you approach it as a resource-driven game that focuses on objectives and squads and team play, it starts to reveal what it's actually doing. I want to say a big thank you to Ascendant for sponsoring this video. Ascendant's Convoyer Trials demo is available during Steam's PvP Fest, running from February 9th through February 16th. If you want to check it out, you can register at ascendant.com and jump in during the event. Also, you can check the link down below.